Hey everybody, this is Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and in today's video we're going to go over some books I picked up from a little convention held over in Hagerstown, Maryland. It was the Four-State Comic-Con, and this is my first time ever going to this convention. My understanding is that they alternate between going to Harrisburg and Hagerstown, and yeah, it was a neat little convention. First, like I said, first time I've ever been to it. It was a lot of cosplay. It was a lot of manga. There was a lot of toys and lots of Funko Pops. Tons of Funko Pops. If you're really into those, you could have had fun looking all day, I'm sure, at those. But as I said, it was a lot of cosplay going on there and a lot of young people. So sometimes when you look at this hobby, sometimes, and the sports card industry as well, you start to see it's an older crowd and everything. And even a regular Comic-Con, like I go to the Baltimore Comic-Con or some of the other ones, and it seems like it's a little bit of an older audience. You don't see as many young people, or at least I don't. I mean, I see there's plenty of young people, don't get me wrong, but it's like you definitely see an older segment of the audience. But at this little convention, they had a lot of young people, and that's great. That's great for the hobby. That's great for the industry. As I said, a lot of them are into cosplay. Mostly of the anime, manga type characters, but there were definitely some Marvel superheroes running around today. So ended up stopping by. I was on the road, I was traveling, and I happened to be close to Hagerstown. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go this weekend, but I ended up stopping by, stayed for about 3 hours, and everything else that they had there, they did have comic dealers, and there was a couple that I've met before, and I ended up buying stuff from both of them, and there were some other new dealers. At this particular con, you ended up having more dealers from the Pennsylvania area that I've never seen before, so that was good to get to see new stock and see what they're bringing. It was interesting. One of the things I kept noticing that a lot of these dealers that came in today were bringing I want to say mid to high grade Marvel books that come from the 70s. It was the reprint books, Marvel's Greatest Comics, Marvel Superheroes doing the Hulk, Marvel Super Action doing the Avengers, these great Marvel Spectacular, I believe that was Thor, doing these reprints of all the classic Silver Age comics. And I love those comics. I grew up in a lot of those, getting those back when I was a kid, and that's how I got introduced to the Silver Age Marvel characters, by reading the reprints in the 70s. And you don't see a lot of those brought to a con, but at this convention I kept running into it, and that was kind of interesting. I don't believe I ended up picking up any of that, but because I was looking for very specific things. But it was a fun time. God bless my wife. She was on the way with me on this trip and everything, and she really didn't want to go in, so she stayed outside, and I think she ended up having a nice nap while I ran in for about 3 hours today, going through boxes and everything. So let's just get into it. Try to make this fairly quick. Here are the books that I ended up getting, and I'm looking down, and I ended up getting books from about 4 different dealers. Another thing I did notice is that some of the dealers, some of the ones I didn't know, there were some that had prices that really seemed out of place for the conditions, and I starting to see a trend of that, where you're starting to see a lot of these high prices on books that, I mean, I can't even come to you and talk to you about these prices. I can't even make a fair, reasonable offer. You've got these things so high. So in a lot of those cases, I'll look and see what your books that you have. If there's something I'm really interested in, I may talk to you about it, but otherwise I'm just going to keep moving on. And good luck. I wish you the best. Maybe somebody will buy those books at those prices, but I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to overpay for a book I think is in lesser condition than what you should be selling it for. So that's just my take on it. I'm seeing out a little bit of a trend on certain dealers. Now, there are certain dealers that actually really want to sell the books. I mean, these guys are in business to sell books. That's how they're making money. And if you're not selling the books, you're not making it. So price to move, I guess. They're trying to move these books. So anyway, let's get into the books. Let's start with one of the first places that I went to. They had some $3 boxes, $2 boxes, $5 boxes, and then they had some wall books. And generally, I'm not looking into too many of the dollar bin boxes myself, just because if you watched my previous videos, even the last video where I'm talking about submitting CGC, that's what I do. I go to these conventions, I go to pick up comics that are in high grade. I try to look at books that I can maybe improve the condition of and send it in CGC and add a lot more value to it. So I'm already looking for really nice high grade books, and generally, yes, you may find a few gems in those $1 boxes, but knowing that I had a limited amount of time today, I did thumb through them a little bit, and I did find some things in the $3 boxes here, but I ended up finding some wall books too. And let's just start with it. So the first two I ended up buying. I bought Young Avengers number 10 and 12, and these are at really good prices. The conditions look really good, but the interesting thing on these is I believe they're actually signed by Jimmy Chung, the artist down here. Now these there's no certification or anything, but I definitely bought these for two reasons. One, conditions are really good. These are two of the bigger books in that 12-issue original run, and the fact that it was signed, I figured, and especially this price was so cheap, I went ahead and took them, and with the intention that maybe I will send this into CBCS at some point, add value. I can't send them in the CGC. It would get a qualified grade with that signature on there. They wouldn't recognize that. They would just say signed on cover, and they wouldn't say who it was or anything. But this is definitely books I bought with the understanding I might do CBCS. Alright, let's see. And to continue in that, wall books. Now I picked up a copy of this. This Pacific Presents #1. This is The Rocketeer. Dave Stevens artwork and everything. And I've got a copy of this somewhere in my collection, but this looked really high grade, and I know that they're coming out with another Rocketeer movie project or something, so I went ahead and picked up another one of these. I think this is probably going to be higher grade than the one that I have. And then, let me see, I'm trying to find if I had any other. So in the $3 boxes, I ended up picking up Batman, Sword of Azrael, the #1 issue here, and looked really clean down the spine, so hopefully the back will come out just as well. I picked up, then I had a section of regular Young Avenger books. I picked up Young Avengers Special #1. They didn't have the Children's Crusade, but they had this one. So it's a book I never had, but I love Jimmy Chung's artwork on the cover there. And then I picked up the Spotlight ones that they did, the Young Avengers Presents Vulcan and Speed. And as I said, this is actually a pretty good value. I think we're going to have next week, we're going to have WandaVision, I'm sorry, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and I think they're bringing back, I think we've seen a clip already in the previews where they're bringing back Wanda's children, at least maybe in some scene or whatever. And I never had any of these books except I think I had, I'm not sure which one I had. I probably had this one here, which is the one on the Patriot. And I just went ahead and picked these up. The $3 books, they have good value, especially if they grade out pretty high. They didn't have the Kate Bishop one there, or I would have picked that one up too. But anyway, that was all from one dealer. And then the next dealer I ended up going to, I ended up buying a book that I literally just I've got it prepped, ready to go to CGC, but I've got the regular cover of this. It's Amazing Spider-Man Annual #21, Wedding of Mary Jane Watson and Peter Parker. But this is the Peter Parker version with all his friends and family behind him and everything. And I never had this particular version. I had the Spider-Man version with all the villains and heroes in the background. But I picked that up, and then I picked up one that I've been looking for myself for a PC project. This is Batman 366, Walt Simonson artwork there. And I've never had this book in my collection. Price was about what you would expect to pay, but I bundled the two together and got a few dollars off. But this right here looked really good. The spine on this looks fantastic. So I'm hoping that this will grade out really well. This is one that I want for my PC, but I think what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to work on it. I'm going to get it ready. I'm going to prep it, and then I'm going to save it for October this year when the Simonsons come back to the Baltimore Comic-Con, and save it for them to get signed. And at that point, I may go ahead and send it in to CGC right there on the spot. So have them witness it and go ahead and send it in, because that right there is really just a beautiful, beautiful book. All right, moving on. Now this is coming from definitely one of the dealers that I've dealt with before. He usually shows up at the clandestine conventions that you have here in the Baltimore area, down in Laurel and Hunt Valley area. But I ran into him, and he always has a lot of brand new books, but a handful of older books too. But the prices are usually pretty good to begin with, and he always runs a 25% off of whatever you buy. So it's pretty easy to figure out how much you're going to spend. There's no, I suppose if you really went with a big bundle, you could probably get a lot more money off of it. But anyway, let me show you what I got. I picked up 2 copies of this. This is Miracle Man number 9. This is the birth of his child, and it's, you know, pretty graphic scenes and everything. Not made for children here. And no, I wouldn't say there's some value on it. I wouldn't say spec value, but there's some value on that. I picked up, I believe this is Alice Ever After, the J. Scott Campbell cover. I may have picked up the regular cover of this on New Comic Book Day, but this guy actually has a lot of variants, and you can definitely find variant ratio editions to a lot of books that he has. So I ended up picking up a copy of that. I picked up issue number 14 of Strange Academy. This is one of the variants. This isn't the main cover, but I believe, what is this, the first real appearance of Gaslight, and there's some other characters, and I know the regular cover has a lot of new characters on there as well. He didn't have any more Strange Academies. I didn't see any more at the show really either, but I went ahead and picked this up. Now here's a book that I actually love. You're not really seeing the full book here. It's sort of a dust cover on this. This is Non-Stop Spider-Man number 1, and is it Chris? I always said Bacalo, but it's Bacello. I'm not sure how you ever pronounce that, but I picked this up because I love his artwork. I love the artwork on this series. I didn't really care for the series that much, but I did really like his artwork. And this particular cover, if you take this dust cover off, you've got a die-cut blue cover that you can see Spider-Man behind there, and then you open it up and you can see it's a bright red scene with Spider-Man and some of the henchmen, villains behind him and everything, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Well, the story with this is I loved it so much last year that I wanted to get that book. I wanted it sent in the CGC. I wanted a 9.8. I wanted it for my collection, and I ended up buying 3 of them through eBay. I ended up with 3 of those, and all 3 of them got rejected. And I've got them sitting in there in the office right now, and I've just recently gone back through a lot of the rejects that for these 9.8 pre-screen submissions, and yeah, all 3 of them have got a little bit of issues on there, and whether they did it or I just missed it, I find it hard to believe that I missed all 3 of those. I don't know, but anyway, I picked up another copy. It wasn't that much, and I'm doing this just really to, kind of make up for not getting one of those graded earlier. So I'm still taking a shot on it. All right, here we got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Usagi Yojimbo. This is from IDW. And anytime you put the 2 of them together, that's always kind of cool. And then I picked up 3 copies, and these were almost free, considering they came from Free Comic Book Day a couple years ago now, from Usagi Yojimbo. This is him and his wife actually co-did this book, and the reason I picked that up is hopefully I'll get to see Stan in person again soon, and his wife's always there with him, and I'm hoping to run into him again, and I'll hold on to at least one of these to get signed by both of them at that point. It's really funny. I've been an Usagi Yojimbo fan since college. You know, probably right after, because I've got most of the books from Fantagraphics #1 all the way up. I didn't have the albedos, but from that point on, I've got nearly every issue, and it's one of those things where they never cost anything. These were $2 books for a million years, and then in the last couple years, especially the Usagi #1, and of course we won't even put the albedo #2 and even 3 and 4 to a certain degree, but outside of issue 1, it still was kind of low, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to see other issues, especially the Fantagraphic issues, really jump up in value. It's kind of crazy. I don't know where that's coming from. Good for Stan, good for Usagi Yojimbo. Bad for me, as I still try to pick up back issues, because I love that series. I'd love having multiple copies of all that. Alright, so I'm going to combine one of these last books with the last books I picked up at the show, because, believe it or not, I picked up 3 more of this. This is X-Men 213, the classic X-Men Marauder storyline. This is the Wolverine and Sabretooth cover. Alan Davis artwork, just absolutely gorgeous. And what's funny is I had 2 of them I picked up from the last dealer I went to. From the dealer that I did know, I picked up this copy, and I completely forgot. By the time I got to the end of the show and I was leaving and I found 2 more copies of it, that's fine, because I'm still looking for a 9.8 on this at some point for the PC. Once I get that, I'll be satisfied, but until then, I'm like a dog with a bone. I am going to keep finding these as best I can. They did have some number 212s, which is it's the same thing, but that one with an all-black cover really shows off those spine ticks. So that one's a lot easier to reject. As soon as you see one, I just reject it, because I've got my 9.2s and 9.4s, and I don't know if I got 9.6s on any of those or not. But this is the challenge I keep running into with these issues, and I'm going to get that 9.8 at some point. So anyway, I picked up 3 more of those, and then the last book I've got here was the one big book I picked up from the dealer that I knew, the one who does the 25% off everything, and it's one of the reasons I went ahead and picked this up. This is Something's Killing Children #7. This is the 2nd print, and there's a little bit of value on this, and I paid a little bit more for a book like this. But as I said, that 25% off made this really almost a no-brainer. Even though the values on a lot of the Something's Killing Children books have gone down over the last year now, there's still a lot of value in this. Even putting the grading fees into this, it should still come out pretty good. It's still a pretty desirable book. So I was happy to pick that one up. And anyway, that's it. That's all the books I picked up today. There were a few. I had a Watchmen #1 in my hand. The cover was immaculate. It looked fantastic, and especially at the price that they were asking. And that's a book that I ask on, especially #1. I will have them take it out, and I'll take a look at the back. And the back was 99% really good, except for right by the top staple they had a color breaking crease, and I'm going, it's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a book that with a crease that I can press out, something I can fix, I can push it up a little bit, but I'm looking for that 9.8 on Watchmen #1. I'm going to get that at some point, but it wasn't going to be on that one, so I backed away. There was a Fantastic Four 243, the one with the Galactus on the cover, fighting the Avengers and Doctor Strange and the Fantastic Four, that looked really nice, except for a few minor defects. And that was another case where they were asking more than that book should be in that condition, and it was easy, back away from that one. And then the last book that I almost picked up because it was a really good price, but it had a defect. It had a crease down, a color breaking crease down here in the bottom right hand corner that was probably an inch and a half. It kind of went up this way. Otherwise, that book was just sparkling. Was All-Star Comics #58. I was looking for that, and I found it. It just, boy, if it wasn't for that, even if it had been just a little bit of a little tiny crease, a corner crease, but it was a big crease going across there. And I know from past experience, sending a book in that has any sort of crease like that can really knock down the grade. Even if the book looks fantastic, that right there will knock the grade down. And I didn't want to put Price was really good, but I backed away from it. So maybe I'm learning a little bit. I don't know. Anyway, guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the books. What do you think of the books that I picked up? I think I got some pretty nice books here. It was a nice little haul. It wasn't all that expensive. I held firm on not overspending on these, and I'm pretty happy about that. So anyway, guys, take care, and I will see you for the next video. Bye-bye.